All right. John 2 is where we start. Does anybody want to read? Cool. I will read.
No, I got it. I got it.
Oh, you got it, CJ?
First of all, I raised.
No, because Bree raised her hand, and I was gonna say it. I was gonna unmute my mic, and she. All right.
Oh, I didn't even look up. I was like, you raised your hand. I didn't even look up. I was over here like looking at my Bible and just trying to listen.
Lemon draw. Chill. All right.
CJ, it's like super windy.
Hold on.
All
I don't even know what I'm doing with this. Okay. I'll just read it.
right, that's good.
Um.
I'll stop you. I'll stop you. All right. So you just read until I stop you.
Wait. So just to make sure, because last week on the third day, right?
Yep. On the third day.
Okay. On the third day, a wedding took place at Cana in Galilee. Jesus' mother was there, and Jesus and his disciples had also been invited to the wedding. When the wine was gone, Jesus' mother said to him, "They have no more wine."
We'll stop there. Easy. Easy. Whew. What's going on?
So basically, they at the wedding, and then they were like giving like the wine to everyone at the wedding, but there was too many people, so then there was like, oh, we're running out of wine.
Mm.
Yeah, that's where we're at.
All right. That was good. That was good. What else do we see? What else is going on?
Jesus' mother's here.
Jesus'
Mary.
mother. Yep. Jesus' mother, who is Mary. Yep. What else?
Where did we read to?
We just read to the end of verse 3.
Uh-huh.
Is anything else going on? So we know that's, there's some wine that apparently is gone or is almost gone. Jesus' mom's there, who's also Mary. They're at this wedding thing. What else?
What is the third day referring to?
What'd you say,
What is
CJ?
the third day referring to?
Oh, on the third day, a wedding took place in Cana in Galilee. What is the third day? Does anybody know?
I was wondering that too, to be honest. Maybe if I look back. Did it mention the second day in John 1? And I just don't remember.
Did it
No.
mention the second day? So it didn't. It just mentioned the next day and the next day and the next day. If you go back to John 1, it literally says, verse 29, it says the next day John saw Jesus. And verse 35, it says the next day John was there again. And then in verse 43, it says the next day Jesus decided to leave for Galilee. So it seems to me like we are still in that next day, which takes place in verse 43. There was the first day we started in John 1. Then we had the next day, which was the second day. But then we had the next day when Jesus was going to Galilee, which apparently was to then go to this wedding, which is then day 3. So that's where.
Oh, okay.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else that sticks out or we have questions about?
I just want to say the first half of the next verse is what is my favorite Bible verse out of context.
Out of context, it's literally hilarious. All right. If we don't have anything else, we can move on. Does anybody want to read the next couple verses?
I could read it.
Bree.
Yeah.
All right, Bree. I will stop you. You know what? You can just read until the end of. Read until the end of verse 6.
Okay. Woman, why do you involve me? Jesus replied, my hour has not. His mother said to the servants, do whatever he tells you. Nearby stood 6 stone water jars, the kind used by the Jews for ceremonial washing, each holding from 20 to 30 gallons.
Good. Awesome. What sticks out? What's going on?
I think what sticks out is when Jesus says, like, what it is, it, my hour has not come. Is that what you read?
Yep.
So in the NLT version, and where it says, my time has not yet come.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I think it's kind of like, he's kind of saying, like, oh, it's not my time to be, like, doing all these, like, miracles and stuff. Maybe.
Maybe.
Because he's like, that's not my problem yet. Like it will, like, he then will, like, do things like this, but he's like, not yet.
Right. Interesting. That's a really good observation. Yeah.
Because wasn't it like at first when Jesus came down, like he wasn't like trying to do all these public miracles all the time. He was just trying to stay a little low key for a little bit, and then he was like,
Interesting. Yeah.
like, I guess this is the time of him being low key. So they're like, he's like, nah, I'm not doing this right now.
Yeah. He's like, Ma, you're rushing me. What are you doing? Oh man. Is there anything else that sticks out?
I also the part where it's like his mom was like, do whatever he tells you. So basically, it's just like, Mom, it's not my time, and she's just like, do whatever he tells you. And then,
Like a typical mom, it's just like, no, no, no. I don't care what you say. Like, just listen to me. Yeah, that's crazy. What else?
I'll be right back, guys. I'm sorry.
Okay.
My dad forgot his wallet and needs me to go bring it to him. So.
Lol.
cool.
I'll be back.
Okay. This is okay. We will just wait for Rachel. We're in no rush. And honestly, Jacob will be able to just skip over this unless you guys have more to say. If you have more to say, absolutely. We just won't move on to more verses until she gets back.
Mhm.
Does anything else stick out?
It doesn't necessarily stick out, or like it's not. But when it's like, woman, why do you involve me? And I press the footnote, and it was like, the Greek for woman does not denote any disrespect.
Right. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like, woman, how dare?
yeah.
Okay.
Hot.
Right. Because honestly, it's literally most of the time I heard this little verse being used, John 2:4. It's typically brought out of context as a joke. Like it's like woman. Like every youth pastor always uses this, and I've heard Jacob say it like 3 times. Dear woman, why do you involve me? And it's like it's not disrespectful in any capacity. It's literally just him addressing his mom.
So funny out of context.
It is hilarious out of context. Because like if we did that, oh my gosh, like I couldn't imagine. Just get slapped.
The next day.
Yeah, no man. But that was a good I'll be honest, CJ. I didn't know the answer to your question. When you were like on the third day, you were like, what the heck is the third day? And I was like, shoot, I don't know. I don't know what the third day is. And I'm so glad I just had John 1 open. It's just right next to it. And so I was able to go back. But yeah, it worked out. Rachel's back. Cool. Does anything stick out to us that we want to talk about before moving on? Okay. Does somebody want to read from verse 7 to the end of verse 11? If not, I will read.
I can do it.
Awesome.
Jesus said to the servants, fill the jars with water. So they filled them to the brim. Then he told them, now draw some out and take it to the master of the banquet. They did so, and the master of the banquet tasted the water that had been turned into wine. He did not realize where it had come from, though the servant who had drawn the water knew. And then he called the bridegroom aside and said, Everyone brings out the choice wine first, and then the cheaper wine after the guests have had too much to drink. But you have saved the best till now. What Jesus did here in Cana of Galilee was the first of the signs through which he relieved his glory, and his disciples believed in him.
Mm, thank you. What sticks out? Anything strike us?
Oh, it's like a thing that people normally do at like weddings, where it's like, oh, they've had too much to drink, they won't realize the cheaper wine is next. But then it's just like Jesus made it to where it was like the best wine that like
Right.
out of all of them. So it's just like he could have just been like, okay, let's just make some normal wine. Here go. But like,
You're
no,
right.
nice and good because like this is coming from me, you know.
Right.
Yeah, and then I also think that, like, it says that this was the first of the signs through which he revealed his glory, which makes sense then to why he was like, nah, this isn't my time yet, because he, like, hadn't really been doing these things yet. Like,
Mm.
this was, like, the first one he, like, when people are like, oh, dang, you can do that stuff.
Yeah.
So it makes sense why he was maybe either like not ready or like timid or like was like, no, I don't want to do that yet.
Right. Right. Which is crazy that you brought that up because it's something that I'm trying to understand where Jesus says in verse 4, Dear woman, why do you involve me? Um, and then he also says, My time has not yet come. His mom then, his mother said to the servants, Do whatever he tells you. Kind of just like hearing what Jesus said, but then mom still needs him to do what she needs him to do. And so it's interesting that Jesus, the Son of God, who can do miracles, is telling his mom, My time has not yet come. And yet she still wants him to do that, and he listens. It's really interesting. Like Jesus is not like a kid. Like he has disciples. Like he has people following him. He's not like the 12-year-old punk kid that has to listen to his mom. Like he's choosing to listen to his mom, even though I'm sure he's old enough to be able to make his own choices, well
Mm-hmm.
over the age of 18. Um, and yet he still chooses to honor his mom and listen to his mom and do a miracle, even though he thinks and says, "My time has not yet come," which is just interesting to me to see how he is even honoring his mom in this.
I kind of also, I don't know, but maybe too, because, like Mary, like she also like talked with the angels and like she knows about like how incredible Jesus was because like she knows this was like her virgin child and like
All right.
maybe also like it's like Jesus not being ready but her knowing that he is capable and
Mm,
that like truly knowing who he is because like she is his mom. So like pushing him to be able to do that. And maybe that's also like why he listens, like, oh, she got a point, let me.
right. Right. Or I kind of played devil's advocate. Maybe it's the exact opposite. Maybe Mary is pushing Jesus to something that he's not supposed to do. Maybe, a mom or dad or, any kind of parent or guardian isn't always right. And so when Jesus says that literally the Son of God says, My time has not yet come, and Mary's like, Sorry, you're my kid. Just go and do it because I told you to. He just does it. And like I know my parents have just don't ask why, just do it. Like I don't care about what you have to say, just go and do it. And like sometimes that just you just put your head down and you just go and do whatever it was. I'm not making water into wine. Apparently it was pretty easy for Jesus to do that. I'm typically just taking the trash out or something, or loading the dishwasher, and I'm making it like throwing a temper tantrum at 21. But I just like I it's interesting to see that Jesus is doing whatever he's doing, um, due to his mom saying it. Hmm. Interesting. But I'm still like, I don't really know how to understand it yet. I don't really know what to understand, but there's something going on. Anyway, what else sticks out? I was talking quite a bit.
Hello.
Yeah.
I'm back. Cool. Do you want to hear something fun? So I did the Missy thing and I looked into the Passion Translation.
Okay.
And the verse 4 says, "My dear one, don't you understand that if I do this, it won't change anything for you, but it will change everything for me. My hour of
You cut out like the last like 6 words.
Mm-hmm. She's waiting to come Rachel.
Did I go silent?
Yep.
Yeah.
Right. Do you want me to read it again?
Yeah.
Please.
It says, "My dear one, don't you understand that if I do this, it won't change anything for you, but it will change everything for me. My hour of unveiling my power has not yet come."
Mm. Mary is saying that to Jesus, that it's not going to change anything for Jesus himself, but it will change things for her. Right?
No, Jesus
No.
said it won't change anything for you, so it won't change anything for Mary, but it will change
Oh,
everything for him, because then everyone will know of his power.
interesting. So it's going to make this Jesus character somebody into something that has power.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of from like Jesus from Galilee, or wait, Jesus not from Galilee, Jesus from Nazareth, son of Mary, and into this Jesus who can now do miracles.
Mm-hmm.
Because it actually states there, like in verse, what was it? Um, verse 9, and the master of the banquet tasted the water and had been turned into wine. He did not realize where it had come from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew. And so the servants are now a witness to the first miracle that Jesus performed, water into wine. And then they realized that the quality of the wine was actually so much better than the first wine to be given, which also says something to say about his miracle. It wasn't just little, it was something that had quality.
Mm-hmm. And then wait, so also, Jordan, this is confusing. Yeah, I get it.
Right.
But but then it doesn't say, like, when he like does it, but it's not his mom looking at him and saying, "Do it." It's her turning to the servants and saying,
Mm,
"Do whatever he says."
right. And so you're
And
right.
then he does it.
Yeah. Right, right, right. And so are you then, would it be right in saying that um she looks to the servants and says, do whatever he tells you, leaving the decision up to Jesus? So Mary is like, hey, I want you to go do this. Jesus is like, my time has not yet come. Mary then looks to the people and is like, if he tells you to do something, do it. Whether it's walk away, whether it's go and do this water into wine thing. And
Mm-hmm.
Jesus is like, hey, go get that water. And they're like, okay. And got it. I
Maybe
see what
that's
you're
it. Maybe we
I
did.
see what you're saying. Ah, that was pretty all right. Jesus leaves the decision up, or Mary leaves the decision up to Jesus. Jesus then chooses to do what he saw fit. Interesting. I can live with that. That's pretty all right. Interesting. Is there anything else that sticks out to us?
I wonder how many servants there was.
Mm,
Like how many people witnessed it? Because it is only the servants witnessing it because nobody says anything.
right.
So I mean, it legit could have been 3 people, could have been 20,
Right.
could have
Right.
been more, could
It
have been
could.
less. You don't really know.
Right. Yeah. We don't really know. But what's interesting to see, and I don't really know the difference here, and so maybe you guys can help me understand it. The difference between servants and the disciples. I don't know how those interplay or if they're different people in total, but like in verse 11, it says this, the first miraculous sign Jesus performed in Cana in Galilee. I don't actually know how to say that. How do you say that? Is it Cana?
Mm.
Cana? Anyway, in Galilee, he thus revealed his glory and his disciples put their faith in him. I don't like, is it the servants?
The Bible says Cana.
Cana?
That's how the dude read it. I just listened to it, but
Oh, okay. Jesus performed at Cana in Galilee and thus revealed his glory, and his disciples put their faith in him. So, like, is the servants and the disciples the same people group?
I didn't think so. I thought the
No.
servants were this
Yeah,
dude's servants, this whoever they're talking, maybe the somewhere in a castle-y type. That's the vibe I got, where it's either a leader or a king or something,
Mm.
and they're his servants.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So we're at a wedding. There's going to be servants that are there to do this wedding thing, to be the people to help out the wedding. Um, Jesus is like, hey, I need to go or he just tells the servants, go and fill this water jugs. The servants then go and take it to the master, which you're saying, I guess the king kind of vibe that we're having going on, the castle kind of thing. And then when they bring that, the servants then knew where the water came from. And then also, while this all happened, the disciples were right next to Jesus the whole time and got to see and have faith in Jesus because of what happened.
Mhm.
Interesting. That makes sense. All right. Is there anything else that we see? Any questions we have?
I don't know where I'm going with this, but back to the last point.
Yeah.
So, if they were servants, what authority does or what following does Mary have to go and say to the servants, follow and to do what he does? So it would further make it more the disciples because they're already following Jesus as it is, without ever having seen, um, him work miracles. But they already don't think he's the Messiah. So, what authority does Mary have in the first place to ask servants to just do, you know?
I
Well,
What?
also, whose wedding is this?
Exactly. Like what? Who?
Because
just be like, servants do whatever this random man says.
Because if it's what?
well, Jesus was invited to the wedding, so
Right.
they
He
Yeah,
know
was.
but
who this is.
oh,
Jesus isn't a random person.
wait,
Mhm.
what?
It says Jesus and the disciples had also been invited to the wedding. So Mary, Jesus, disciples, they were invited.
Right.
Yeah, no random people to the servants. It's not the servants' wedding.
But
Wait, what?
I'm saying, if it's so, say it's said the master, he is doing the things, right?
Hmm.
Right.
He invited Jesus. If the master knows him, maybe the servants are familiar, or they at least kind of know.
Mm.
I. Mm.
Okay. So what? This started with CJ. CJ, was there a question there or a confusion? I
Um,
didn't really pick up what that was.
it was a point that the servants were supposed to be the disciples.
The servants were supposed to be the disciples.
Yes.
Servants and disciples are the same people group.
Yes.
Got it. Okay. So let's try and figure this out. It's saying, so we're saying that an invitation, what Rachel was saying, an invitation was exceeded from this master or whoever was giving the invitations to Mary, Jesus' mother, was there, and Jesus and his disciples also were invited to the wedding. So then Mary, Jesus, and the disciples. So the disciples are in their own group right now. Then we go in to the actual wedding where Jesus' mom, Mary, is saying that we need to have um, more water or more wine, and Jesus is talking and figuring that out. And then it says in verse 6, nearby stood 6 stone water jars, the kinds that used the kind used by the Jews for ceremonial washing, each holding from 20 to 30 gallons. And then Jesus said to the servants, fill the jars with water, so they filled them to the brim. Then he told them, now draw some out and take it to the master of the banquet. They did so, and the master of the banquet tasted the water and had never that had been turned into wine. He did this not where, he did this not. Oh, he did not realize where it had come from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew. Then he called the bridegroom and said, everyone bring out the choice wine. Okay. The first miraculous sign joined by Cana in Galilee. He thus revealed his glory. Disciples put their faith in him. Yeah, honestly, I don't know. Rachel?
The Passion
I was
Translation
about to say that. Yeah.
servants to servers, which is more the lines of they are serving the part, or like I serve. Wait, is that what I was reading? Yeah. I don't know.
Interesting. Honestly, at first glance, because the invitation was sent to the disciples as well as Jesus and Mary, that means they're in their own group. And so when it introduces another group as the servers or the servants, that would then be the servants of the people doing the wedding are separate from the disciples of Jesus because it knows who the disciples are. John is aware of the disciples. I'm pretty sure he would have just said the disciples were the ones with Jesus doing the water filling and and Jesus was there turning the water into wine. But it doesn't. It says servants. And so I think those are just a different people group at the wedding. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Um,
Going off of the Passion Translation.
right. And so, like, I think I'm reading NIV, and then ESV says something pretty similar.
Everything I looked at said servants, and then
Servants.
Passion Translation said servers. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the Passion Translation is a bit different. I don't think the Passion Translation is actually, I think it's a paraphrasing opposed to like an actual biblical translation.
Yeah.
I'm not as sure how helpful this is, but like that's what I was getting, was like they are the servers of the party.
Right. Right. Which makes sense. They're different people groups. And even if they're not, it still leads the same of, well, no, honestly, I guess it is different. Like, because the servants knew who the water came from and was drawn from. And then we had the disciples they just believed in him because they saw what happened. Interesting. Yeah. I don't know. I can do a little bit more homework, honestly, and try to have a more definite answer. But with all of what we've done and what we've talked about so far, I would say the servants are definitely a different people group than the disciples. They are there for the wedding. The disciples are there because Jesus was there, and the disciples were invited. Like, guests wouldn't be. While Mary seems to be having like a, I don't know, like she was invited too. I don't really know if the disciples were there to help out with the wedding, even though Mary takes it upon herself to need more wine for the wedding and ask Jesus to do so. But I don't know. I would just say they're separate right now. But good question. And it was good talking about that, trying to figure it out. Is there anything else that we see, or would we like to move on to the next couple verses?
Let's keep going.
All right. Does anybody want to read?
I got it.
All right, CJ. I'm going to give you a big chunk. You ready for this?
Uh-huh.
I want you to just read it to the end.
Dang.
Is that all right?
Jordan.
You're like, I got this. And then I was like, read the whole thing.
All right, pray for me, y'all. Hold up, I gotta get the right translation. Oh, okay. Um,
Actually, you know what?
I got the whole thing. I got the entire
Read.
thing.
All right. If you got the whole thing, you got the whole thing. Actually, you know what? Just read it. Just read it. Yeah.
Okay.
You got this.
When it was almost time for the Jewish Passover, Jesus went up to Jerusalem. In the temple courts, he found people selling cattle, sheep, and doves, and others sitting at tables exchanging money. So he made a whip out of cords and drove all from the temple courts, both sheep and cattle. He scattered the coins of the money changers and overturned their tables. To those who sold doves, he said, "Get these out of here. Stop turning my father's house into a market." His disciples remembered that it is written, "Zeal for your house will consume me." The Jews then responded to him, "What sign can you show us to prove your authority to do all this?" Jesus answered them, "Destroy this temple, and I will raise it again in 3 days." They replied, "It has taken 46 years to build this temple, and you are going to raise it in 3 days?" But the temple he had spoken of was his body. After he was raised from the dead, his disciples recalled what he had said. Then they believed the scripture and the words that Jesus had spoken. Now, while he was in Jerusalem at the Passover festival, many people saw the signs he was performing and believed in his name. But Jesus would not entrust himself to them, for he knew all people. He did not need any testimony about mankind, for he knew what was in each person.
Mm, interesting. All right. Thank you, CJ. That was awesome. Um, what sticks out? What's going on?
I feel like from what I've been like reading so far, this is the most like aggressive kind of I've seen Jesus, where he's just like full up, like makes a whip, walks in there and is like, leave, leave, flip tables, no. Like
Yeah.
it's very aggressive compared to the like just like miracles that he does, which are kind of just like chill and stuff.
Right. Yeah. I would say this is absolutely one of the most aggressive scenes with Jesus, if not one of the, actually, probably the most aggressive um, that we see of Jesus doing. What else?
His metaphor on like when he was talking about destroy this temple and I will raise it again in 3 days.
Mm,
When like what's his authority to be acting all like this, you know? And I like how he like rather than just being like his authority, like saying his authority is like, I'm the son of God, I am God. Like he was just like destroy the temple, don't raise in 3 days, and then they're just like I don't think you can do that. That's not possible. But he wasn't really talking about like the physical temple, like that temple. Like he was talking about
right.
himself.
Yeah. Yeah, which is awesome because Jesus is like, they question him and Jesus gives them dead right answer, like absolutely the best answer he could ever give in that. Um, and they just don't get it. It just goes right over their head, and they're like, "What? What do you mean 3 days? It's taken so long to build this temple." And they just miss the fact that he's the son of God, and he's talking about he's foreshadowing his death
Mm-hmm.
um, to these people, and they just don't get it.
Is this the earliest of the foreshadow, or like earliest to like him talking about it? Because like
Mm,
he talks about, like I feel like he frequently like is talking to the disciples like, listen, I'm gonna be raised for the dead.
yeah.
I feel like this is like
Uh-oh, Rachel, you went mute.
She muted herself after she was done talking.
Oh, you did. Okay. Um, Yeah, I would say that this is absolutely one of the earliest um, points where Jesus is foreshadowing his death um, in a like he himself is doing that like throughout the Bible. It is like in the Old Testament and with prophets, like people know this Messiah is going to come. He's going to die, but Jesus doesn't actually say it this early. I don't think in any other Gospels. And so if that's what you're saying, I do think John chapter 2, it's pretty
Yeah,
quick.
like the earliest Jesus himself
Yeah,
proclaims, like, I'm gonna die.
right. I would say that this is definitely one of the earliest, yeah, if not the earliest. What else sticks out?
Uh, that his like disciples like remembered that he said that like before, and there's like, oh, so that's what that meant. That wasn't just like destroyed the temple. Like
Mm,
how they like were actually able to interpret what he said like the way he actually meant it.
right,
Still being like, oh well, he said that he's they didn't destroy the temple, so they actually understood what he meant after the whole him dying and then being resurrected happened.
right. And it's interesting you say that because Bree, you point out a really a really important thing. You have these people that Jesus is talking to. The Jews, verse 18, the Jews then responded to him, "What sign can you show us to prove your authority to do all of this?" Jesus' response was, Jesus answered them, "Destroy this temple," talking about himself, "and I will raise it again in 3 days." Both the people, the Jews that he was talking to, and his disciples didn't understand in the moment what Jesus was talking about. And so maybe the disciples were giving Jesus the benefit of the doubt and saying, all right, he will raise this temple in 3 days. This temple, this magnificent temple that was built for 46 years, um, and he'll just do it. Like, I don't know, but like they didn't know either. Not until the death of Jesus and the resurrection of him, or it says, verse 22, after he was raised from the dead. So after all the time, persecution and Jesus doing his thing, then the death of Jesus, then the resurrection of Jesus, then the disciples went all the way back and understood what he was talking about and foreshadowing way back when. And so nobody understands what Jesus is talking about right here. Nobody gets it.
I also think it's interesting too that like it says, many people saw the signs he was performing and believed in his name, but Jesus would not entrust himself to them, for he knew all people.
Mm,
So, like, a lot of people were like, oh, like, this dude can do this thing. It's like, okay, we believe in you. But, like, Jesus wasn't taking these people as his disciples because he, like, truly knew what was in their heart
mm.
and knew that he, like, couldn't trust these people. Like, maybe they're like, I mean, right now is a miracle that happened. Like, yeah, I believe, but like maybe next week they're like, oh, I'm out.
Interesting. Right. Right. Yeah. And that's a really good insight on that. You know, verse 23 through 25. I'm actually going to reread it real quick. Now while he was in Jerusalem at the Passover festival, many people saw the signs he was performing and believed in his name. But Jesus would not entrust himself to them, for he knew all people. Verse 25. He did not need any testimony about mankind, for he knew what was in each person. And foreshadowing sin and that, that kind of fall of man is in each person. But you're right in that he's not giving freely this discipleship to anybody. While people are allowed to believe in this Jesus, and what he's able to do and have faith in that, it is really important that Jesus sees people's hearts. He sees the why behind the what. He sees the the persona of belief versus the actual heart change.
Which then I think adds to the fact like how special the disciples he chose are, because it's like he knew these people he couldn't trust him, but like with him choosing the disciples, he was like, I know what's in your heart, and I know that you'll stay by me, and I know you're important. So come
Mm,
follow me.
right, right. There's a difference there. There's a difference between people that believe in his name, and don't have a heart change versus the disciples who believe in his name, believe he's the literal Son of God, and do have a heart change and are willing to follow him day by day. Yeah.
And I feel like it's not even necessarily like they like just their like belief in him like that, because some of his disciples he like chose when they weren't really sure about Jesus. Like they weren't really sure with their belief in him. Like I believe like who was the tax collector? What was his name? I
Tax
don't
collector?
yeah. And
What's
he was one
that?
of the disciples. He was a tax collector in this time.
Matthew? Matthew was a tax collector? Maybe?
Was he? I think he was. Anyway, so one of them that's one of his disciples was a tax collector. And it was like the way Jesus, like when Jesus called him to be one of his disciples, I believe it was like he wasn't really 100% sure in his belief in him yet at that point.
Mm,
So I didn't even necessarily, like, oh, they believe in me fully and they're willing to do this and their heart, like, whatever. Like, Jesus knows, like, their future. Jesus knows, like, what,
interesting.
like, which is why, like I guess, like him saying, like, he knows what was in each person, so he sees that potential and he sees that what's their like what's going to change rather than necessarily
Interesting.
what's in that moment, what their heart is, and then going forward, just like what will happen going forward. You know what I'm saying?
Got it. So Jesus sees more big picture than
Yeah.
what we even ourselves see. Um, Jesus is looking into the future and seeing these disciples and how they'll follow him and all this kind of stuff, where maybe he looks at other people and he sees they're circumstantial. They'll only believe if he's doing these miracles, where it might eventually just fade away because he's not doing the miracles anymore, or because he eventually then dies. And yet, 11 of the 12 disciples actually stick with this and see it through the end after Jesus' death and resurrection. Interesting. Yeah, that's really good. It's really good, Bree. Is there anything else we see? Question. Why was Jesus so angry at what the Jewish people were doing in his temple? Why is this one of the most aggressive scenes we see of Jesus?
It's supposed to be kept sacred, and they were just. I mean, where is it? Hold on. They were quite literally trying to sell animals for their own profit inside of a literally the most holy place. Like, come on now. Jesus had a right to be completely angry
Yeah.
with them because that it was trying to taking away the holiness of the entire place and just trying to turning it into a little market, which is
Mm.
you know especially since the Son of Man is sitting right there
Yo.
looking at
Right.
the stone and stuff. But
Right. Yeah, but I hear you, but why is the temple so great? Like in reality, it's just a building. All right. So why is this temple so awesome? Like why can't people just go and sell and do these things in there?
Um, I'm not sure about this, but like I'm not like it wasn't it like in the Old Testament. I don't know if this is the same temple. Like the Old Testament, like Jesus, like God had all these instructions on how to build this temple, like and all that stuff. Is that the same one? This is the
That's a tabernacle, was it not? Is that the
um.
same?
Yeah, so there's difference between a tabernacle and a
Yeah,
temple.
I was like, that's
Um,
tabernacle.
Remember if
but
that in the Old Testament. That's why I was just like I don't.
right. But at the same time, there were things that needed to be exactly the same as the tabernacle as the temple. And so
Mhm.
there is a way that God asked and instructed for the temple to be made and kept. But why was the temple so important?
I don't know where I'm going with this. but maybe it wasn't just the temple.
Interesting.
Like, maybe there's some type deeper meaning into like them using the temple to like sell their stuff, like misusing like God and stuff as a way for them to make money.
Interesting. Yes. There are things that can occur, and CJ, you hit this too. There's things that can occur in the temple. However, there's things that also cannot occur in the temple. There's things that you take away the sacredness of the temple. You take away the meaning of it, what it signifies. The temple is literally the only place you can go on earth that allows you to be close to God and his presence. Because in the temple rests a smaller thing, a smaller room, which is the Holy of Holies, which is the only place that during this time, I think during the Passover, which is where we're at, Passover festival, is where one person, one high priest, can go into the Holy. Yes?
Is this the place where the curtain was, where like when Jesus is like on the cross, like the curtain is ripped down? Is that the same?
This
Okay.
this is absolutely where the curtain was torn in two. It is a metaphor as it was in reality, where the temple was then opened up. The curtain was divided in two, and the Holy of Holies, God's presence, was able to come out into the world as what we know as the Holy Spirit. But there, it's like blasphemy. It's like you're not giving the holiness. You're not allowing for God's place to be what it was made to be, which was a sacred place for God. They are making it into a marketplace, which is so not sacred, which is so individualistic, and they're using it for their own gain, opposed to acknowledging and worshiping and praising God in this place. So there's things, even Jesus, that aren't allowed to take place in the temple. That's why he's so angry. Is there anything else that sticks out?
I also think it's interesting, or I guess ironic, maybe. I don't know
Okay.
how in like what they were selling was like the cattle, sheep, and doves for sacrifices. So it's like they're like, oh, here's your dove that you can sacrifice to be like, God, like, love me or whatever they did. But then it's like them also being bad because this is not allowed.
Mm,
Which I think is just like really interesting. How
interesting.
it's like they're doing like this bad stuff, but like it's for sacrifices.
Right.
That wouldn't work in the first place because it's supposed to be something that the sacrifice itself is supposed to be something that you're giving up, like physically from yourself. You're not buying it off of somebody else. So yeah, just agreeing with your point that it don't quite work out.
Yeah. Yeah, and it actually says that in the NLT, and it doesn't really pick that up in the NIV or ESV. The point of verse 14, in the temple area, he saw merchants selling cattle, sheep, and doves for sacrifices. And he also saw dealers at tables exchanging foreign money. And so you're right. That was a great observation, and seeing the fact that, like, what are the things that they're selling? Well, they're selling these things that have a monetary value that you can just pay a little bit of money get whatever creature you need and then just do it. It's just a task. There's no heart involved. They're separating a little bit of money, and they're able to have a cleansed feeling because they're having the right sacrifice or the right sin they committed, and they feel good about themselves, and they get to move on. They get to think they have atonement for whatever they did. Where in reality, it needs to be an actual heartfelt sacrifice, and where you have something that you own for several days, and it's something that actually becomes part of the family to a degree, and it's something that means something. It has more of a weight than just some pennies in your pocket to pick up a sacrifice and then you just do it. It's not a task, it's a heart thing. And so like it's almost signifying that it's convenient. Like people don't have enough interest to go to a market or to go to anywhere, to go to their house, pick something from their cream of the crop choosing, or to go outside of the temple and pick something and to sacrifice it in a way that is sacred. So in order to get people to do something and to participate in this action, they literally have to bring all of the animals that count as sacrifices inside the temple, so people will just do it because they don't have an interest enough to do it outside. It's convenience. Good observations. Is there anything else that sticks out? Can somebody give me a quick summary of what is occurring in John chapter 2?
I'm going to take this one.
Take this one.
Okay, let's see if I remember what happened. So, after all the stuff that happened, there's this wedding that Jesus and his disciples go to. And then his mom's like, hey, yo, there's no more wine, do something. And Jesus is like, I don't know if I'm ready. And then his mom's like, you should, though. So then he gets these servants, and he's like, hey, can you do this with me? And they're like, yeah, sure. And then it's his first, like, miraculous sign of, like, and revealed who Jesus was, because he turned water into wine. And then his disciples, like, began to, like, believe in him, like, even more. And so after this, Jesus and his disciples then go to Jerusalem, and they walk into the temple, and Jesus is like, hey, that's not allowed. And he's like very angry about it. And he's like, stop turning my house into a marketplace. No, thank you. We don't want that. And then the people are like, hold up. What authority do you have to be telling us what to do? And Jesus is like, if you destroyed this temple, I could raise it in 3 days. Not talking about the literal temple, but talking about himself. And they were like, nah, we're not destroying this temple. This took way too long to build. And he was like, oh, okay. But then his disciples realized later on, after his death, after he was raised, that he was talking about himself. And then he continued doing miraculous signs, and more people began to believe in Jesus. John 2.
Nailed it. Well said. Yep. It's a good summary. Perfect. Does anybody... Oh, is there any other question that I have? Does anybody have any questions or something that doesn't make sense, or any last words for what we talked about? All right. Does anybody want to close us out in prayer? Okay, I will close us out in prayer. God, we want to just thank you so much for the opportunity that we have to read your word, to understand it, and to be able to experience you through your word, Father God. Thank you for leading this conversation, and thank you for allowing us to understand your word We ask that that we might be able to do this again next week. In my name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right, guys. Well, hey, thank you so much. And quick shout out, anybody that's watching this online is welcome to come and join us on Thursday nights, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. most of the time, give or take some minutes. Life happens, and so if it's 7:15 to 8:15, we get it. But we meet for an hour, and it's just us. It's me, CJ, Bree, and Rachel. And so it's gonna be awesome. You can come and hang out. You know, you don't have to read the Bible to join the group. We can just read it right here together. So anyway, thanks, guys.